Okay, let's unpack this. We're doing a deep dive today into a really tragic and honestly quite complex case coming out of Satara in Maharashtra.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
It really is. And this deep dive is important because the death of this young doctor, she was only 28, seems to have, well, exposed what our sources are suggesting is just layer upon layer of alleged institutional abuse, uh, harassment, and maybe even systemic failure.
Right.
So today, we're going to be digging through the source material, the initial police reports, what the family has said, and that really shocking piece of evidence she left behind.
The note.
Exactly, the note. We want to understand how this medical professional apparently got caught between some really powerful forces, law enforcement, local politics, even her own workplace.
It's a truly gut-wrenching case, and the initial incident seems almost straightforward, tragically so. A doctor working at a government hospital found dead late Thursday night in a hotel room. And it was immediately looked at as a potential suicide. But, the moment the police started processing the scene, the whole thing just exploded into this massive institutional crisis.
And this is where it gets really, really complex. So to tackle this, where do we even begin? I think naturally we have to start with the evidence she left because it was just so startlingly direct.
Absolutely. The police work right at the start uncovered what has to be the single most crucial piece of evidence here. A note, but written incredibly on her palm.
On her palm. Wow.
Yeah, not, a formal letter sealed away. This was raw, immediate, scrawled right there. And it contained these severe, very specific accusations that basically forced the local administration's hand, instantly.
A note on her own hand. I mean, that level of immediacy, that kind of accusation, it just screams for attention, doesn't it?
It really does.
And when you look at all the claims together, the ones from the note and then what the family started saying, you realize she was apparently being squeezed from, well, almost every direction.
Exactly right. The sources seem to outline about 5 major areas of alleged pressure, and we can kind of group them, maybe, into 2 main buckets.
Yeah.
There's the sort of external personal abuse and then the internal institutional pressure. So on the personal side, you've got these terrible claims of rape and sexual harassment by one police sub-inspector.
Right.
And then separate claims of mental harassment by a second police officer.
Okay, so 2 officers implicated personally. But then, like you said, there's this other side, the professional sphere. And that might be the most damning part for the system she was working in. We're talking about claims of harassment from seniors at her actual job, the hospital. And then, crucially, this immense police and political pressure aimed right at her professional duty, specifically demanding she falsify official post-mortem reports.
That's the devastating connection, isn't it? The personal and the professional pressures allegedly converging.
Yeah. And looking at the immediate aftermath, the allegations were so severe, so targeted, especially at police officers, that the political reaction was, well, instant.
It really was. Chief Minister Devendra Fadnavis, who, remember, also holds the home portfolio, he immediately told the Satara Police to suspend the officers named in that note.
Wow, okay.
That kind of swift, high-level response, it just underscores the incredible gravity of it all. A victim leaving behind what's essentially a dying declaration that points the finger straight at state authorities.
That speed, you're right, bypassing the usual, procedural steps. It tells you the authorities knew they had a massive potential scandal brewing. Okay, so let's drill down into those specific external pressures first. The note named names.
You did.
The sources mentioned 2 officers, and each one accused of something different, apparently, over the last 5 months or so.
That's the time frame mentioned, yes, 5 months. The note claimed that one, a sub-inspector named Gopal Badan, had allegedly raped and sexually harassed her multiple times.
Multiple occasions. Okay.
And the second officer, Prashant Bankar, he was accused specifically of subjecting her to sustained mental harassment. So you see these 2 distinct forms of abuse, physical and sexual on one hand, mental on the other, allegedly coming from 2 different people within the police force itself.
And the police leadership? They had to respond decisively, publicly. The Satara Superintendent of Police, Tushar Doshi, he gave an update confirming a formal case was registered against both officers, right?
Yes, immediately. And what's important here is the charges. It wasn't just harassment. The case was filed under charges of rape and abetment to suicide.
Ah, so connecting the alleged abuse directly to her death.
Precisely. It signaled that the investigators were taking the pressures detailed in her note, both personal and institutional, as the direct cause. The sub-inspector, Badane, was suspended right away, and police teams were sent out to find both of them.
And the SP promised a thorough probe and stringent action.
He did, what you'd expect, but the speed was notable.
And it wasn't just internal police pressure driving this, was it? The Maharashtra Women's Commission got involved too.
That's right. The chief, Rapali Jakankar, took cognizance, ordered strict action, so you had institutional accountability being demanded from outside the police structure as well.
Which likely added pressure. It makes it harder for things to get bogged down in bureaucracy.
Definitely. The allegations were just too specific, the evidence, the note on her palm too stark, and I imagine the political heat was becoming pretty intense.
But, as you said earlier, this alleged police harassment, however horrific, was only one part of the picture. We have to look at the pressure she was apparently facing in her day-to-day work as a doctor.
Yes. And this brings us back to that convergence point. The external abuse meeting the internal institutional pressure. Her family, particularly her aunts who reportedly raised her, gave some really crucial context here.
They described her as bright and ambitious.
Exactly. And they absolutely connected the dots for the media, didn't they? Her aunts said she'd recently told them about being harassed. One aunt specifically remembered the doctor saying she was being harassed by seniors at work just 2 days before she died.
2 days before. Wow. That suggests the professional environment itself was becoming unbearable, contributing to her distress.
It certainly points that way.
But this goes beyond just, difficult workplace dynamics or tough seniors. This is where it gets really disturbing. The source material alleges that her actual job, her core function as a medical professional, was being targeted. Relatives, citing news agency reports like PTI and ANI, claim she was facing immense pressure, specifically related to the integrity of her forensic work.
And this raises that huge question, why? Why would a doctor doing post-mortem reports suddenly become a target for police and political pressure? The answer hinted at in the notices is deeply troubling.
Her cousins specifically claimed, and this is a quote, a lot of police and political pressure on her to make wrong mortem reports.
Wrong mortem report.
Yeah, let's just pause on that. Falsifying post-mortem reports. A post-mortem is, it's a critical piece of forensic evidence. It's supposed to establish the medical truth of how someone died. So, if police or politicians are allegedly pressuring a doctor to change that report, what does that imply about the cases those reports were for?
Well, it implies a potential cover-up, doesn't it? Or at the very least, a serious attempt to manipulate the justice system by tampering with the fundamental forensic facts. And this seems to be where her professional integrity became, well, a problem for someone.
So, she was allegedly being harassed personally by police officers, and then in her official role, she was facing pressure from both police and political figures to basically compromise her ethics, her duty to the truth.
It really sounds like a trap, a terrible, impossible situation. If she refused to falsify the reports, she risked what? More institutional backlash, more harassment from seniors, continued political pressure.
And the sources suggest she had actually tried to complain about this specific issue.
Right. But if she did comply, she'd be violating her professional oath, potentially helping obstruct justice in who knows how many other cases.
Yeah.
The two types of alleged abuse, the personal and the professional, they seem completely tangled together here.
It's that convergence, isn't it?
Yeah.
That makes this case such a stark illustration of potential systemic failure.
Yeah.
It wasn't just, one bad senior or just one or two bad cops, according to these claims. It sounds like the system itself, police, politicians, maybe even her medical superiors, allegedly aligned to make her professional life impossible because she wouldn't compromise on evidence.
What really stands out from the sources, for me, is the sheer moral weight that was apparently placed on her shoulders. She wasn't just navigating personal conflict. She was allegedly dealing with pressure to corrupt forensic evidence, which is, a cornerstone of our justice system.
Yeah.
That kind of pressure, day in and day out, tied directly to your job, it would be absolutely devastating for anyone.
And the family's testimony really drives this home. They paint a picture of this bright, ambitious young woman suddenly talking about just insurmountable harassment from multiple angles leading to this tragedy.
So if we're summarizing the core takeaways from the sources for you, the listener, it really seems to be this tragic, three-pronged confluence of pressures. First, severe personal abuse allegations, the rape, sexual harassment, mental harassment, explicitly naming 2 police officers. Second, professional distress, claims of harassment from workplace seniors. And finally, maybe most alarmingly for the institutions involved, this intense political and police pressure allegedly aimed at forcing her to compromise truth itself by falsifying critical post-mortem reports.
The investigation, I mean, it clearly seems to be moving forward with some seriousness. You've got the immediate suspensions, promises of tough action from the very top of the state government. That's all noted in the sources.
Right.
But the story itself, the narrative laid out in these initial reports and testimonies, it presents this profound moral conflict that goes way beyond just the immediate criminal investigation into her death.
It really does, because when you consider that alleged pressure, the demand that she compromise her professional duty, alter forensic records, you're left thinking, what does this case reveal about the incredible difficulty people face in sensitive professional roles? When your duty to objective truth, to facts, clashes head-on with powerful political or institutional demands, the potential cost, as seen here perhaps, is just catastrophic.
Just think about the kind of moral courage it must take to work in an environment like that, where simply refusing to put a false signature on a forensic report could allegedly lead to harassment and abuse, maybe even from the very people who are supposed to uphold law and order. That, I think, is the heavy thought this deep dive leaves us with, and it's the key systemic question raised by all this source material.